We're KC 101. It's Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. Time for Saturday with Seniors, brought to you by FCCB's Tioga County offices, which are located in Wellsboro, Mansfield, and Blossburg. FCCB is proud to sponsor Saturday with Seniors here on KC 101. First Citizens Community Bank, building better communities for over 150 years, member FDIC. And I'm so looking forward to today's show because we got Dawn Pletcher joining us here. Hello, Dawn.
Hey, Kevin. Thank you so much for inviting me. And how neat that First Citizens is sponsoring, because my daughter's department manager at First Citizens.
Well, great community bank, and they've been the sponsor for quite a while here on Saturday with Seniors.
Yep. And Randy's been real generous with us.
Good to Goodies for Our Troops you're referring to. And a lot of people know you from Goodies for Our Troops, an organization that you started up, 30 or so years ago?
Oh, no, please.
Okay.
17.
17 years ago. Okay.
We're in our 17th year.
Sorry, I don't want to date you.
He's making me older than I am.
All right, well, if you round up, there's been 30 years. We'll call it 17 as you do. But before that, you did a lot of other things in your life. And I want to hear some of these stories and about where you grew up and where you went to school and what you knew about your parents and all that stuff. So let me ask you first, how old are you, Dawn?
I am 79.
79 years old. You had to think about it for a second. It changes every year.
Susan Richard told me I can be 25 for the rest of my life about 5 years ago. So I go with the 25. But since you asked, and I'd tell you the truth.
All right, we'll go with the truth. 79 years old. Where were you born?
I was born actually in Dr. Moshe's home in Coudersport, which is across from the consistory. And at that time, Dr. Moshe's home was upstairs, and the first floor was Cole Hospital.
Were you supposed to be born in his home, or was that just where you happened to have it up?
He and my mother graduated together, and he was the only doctor for a pregnant woman because Dr. Meikle, who was Gelton's doctor, didn't do pregnancies and deliveries. So you either had a midwife that came to your house or you had Dr. Moshe, and since he was in Coudersport, you better have a way to get to the hospital. And actually, that night the mom went into labor, there was a huge blizzard. And back in those days, there were no ambulances except for the funeral parlor's hearse was the ambulance.
All right, double use there, I suppose.
But that's how it was back then. So anyway, Mrs. Churchill, who lived next door, went with Mom in the ambulance, the hearse.
In a snowstorm or blizzard over
blizzard over
from Gelton over Denton,
Coudersport.
Which in today's time frame with cell phones and snowplows and PennDOT was good. Well, you don't remember obviously the trip.
Well, no, I don't remember the trip, but Mom always talked about what an awful trip it was, and she was so sure I was going to come as they were bumping, and twisting and sliding and slipping and sliding away.
Yeah. But you made it, so you were born there at the doctor's house across from the consistory, and then you were living in Gelton at that time.
Right.
So what was life like in Gelton? Were times tough financially? Or?
Oh, yeah. No, I was a war baby. I was born in 1943. We were war babies, and so there aren't that many of us, but my parents, when I was born, lived in Mr. Straight's house, the house directly across from the community building in Gelton at the bottom of Brewery Hill. Mm-hmm. At that time, he was alive, so he had the first floor, and the apartment on the second floor is where we were.
And what type of work did your dad do? Do you know what he did before you were born? Was he living in Gelton then?
Yeah, my dad lived in Gelton all of his life till he came to the Green Home. My dad was 4F for the active military, so he was Pennsylvania Army National Guard at the Wellsboro Armory. Actually, that is now the sheriff's home.
Yep.
Right? They sent him down to Indiantown Gap to train him to be a chef. And then they came in one day and said, we need volunteers to be firemen on the Pennsylvania Railroad. And if you don't volunteer, we have to have a certain quota, you'll be voluntold. Well, my dad raised his hand because my dad wanted to be a railroader. And all the guys were saying, what's wrong with you, Pletcher? That's like being in hell. You're going to be shoveling coal all the time. He said, I don't care. I want to be a railroader. So, and at the time I was born, Daddy was on the Pennsylvania Railroad somewhere around Buffalo or someplace, Ohio, who knows. He didn't even know I was born for 10 days.
Wow, communications were different then. You didn't see it on Facebook then, huh?
No. In communications, like my parents didn't even have a telephone at that time.
So obviously no TV if you had no telephone. Did you have electric then?
No, we did have electric, yeah. But my mother grew up on a primitive farm with no electric, no running water, no telephone, no radio, no gas. They lived off the land. No automobiles. I mean, no way.
Just horses to do all the work.
Yeah.
And humans to do a lot of the work too. I'm sure they worked a lot every minute of their life. Wow. So growing up in Gaelton, you went to school in Gaelton as well?
I did, and we went to the little red brick schoolhouse up there on the hill behind what is now the theater that used to be the Baptist church, and that's still there. In 5th grade, they sent us over to the north side hill, 2 big wooden 2-story school buildings. And you know Gaelton, right there up the hill behind the Moose, or in our case, we came across Mill Street Bridge and went up Route 6 and went up, I guess that's School Street, but it's still straight up the hill. And we did that for a year and a half, and then they were building the school on the flat that is now still their school.
So what was Gaelton like when you were growing up? I know that it was a lot bigger downtown before the fires, and there was a lot more happening. Was it a busy shopping destination on weekends?
Gaelton was a busy shopping destination during the week. I mean, there were tons of stores on Main Street, wonderful stores. I think it was Friday night that the farmers would come in with their horses and buggies, and the stores would stay open late. Everybody knew pretty much everybody in Gaelton. Our population then had gone down. I don't know about the 1950 census, but I know the 1960 census, which is the year I graduated, they were asked to give their dogs and cats human names and put them on the census because Gaelton had to have, I think it was 1,200 or maybe it was 1,500 people in order to get some big government grant that they needed.
So who was saying to put the dogs' names on the? It's past the statute of limitations.
Whoever was a census taker, of which one probably was my grandmother, because she did everything else. But yeah, it was different. When I was 14, my dad got me a job at the Gaelton Diner up on Main Street, and I went to live with my great aunt in her building, which was then years later one of the buildings that burned, directly across from the Atlantic station that my great-grandfather had built. And that was nice because then I didn't have to walk from down in Clinton Town in the winter because I had to be at work by 5 o'clock in the morning to open up. And then I was there till 9 o'clock and sometimes later to clean because I worked before school and after school. And my great aunt treated me like a princess. And I finally had my own bed in my own room, which I never had before that because I'm the oldest of 8.
How many kids?
Well, there would have been 13, but there were 8 of us that made it to adulthood. And now one of my little sisters had passed away.
Big families were very popular in your time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm learning from a lot of our guests. 10, 12, 14 kids, I think one of them had.
16. One of the things, the farmers, for sure, they needed big families to work the farms. Back then, there was no such thing as birth control. Even when I got married, there really wasn't much of anything in the way of birth control other than don't do it.
All right, we're going a strange direction here. We're going right back. It's Saturday with Seniors here on KC 101, brought to you by FCCB, First Citizens Community Bank. The local branches are sponsors in Wellsboro, Mansfield, and Blossburg. And you can hear this and all the previous shows, by the way, on our website. There's a link to our YouTube channel. Go to our website, kc101fm.com. And we'll be right back in just a minute with Don Pletcher, our guest today on Saturday with Seniors. We're back. It's Saturday with Seniors. Don Pletcher, our guest here today, and we are having a great time. We do this each Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Talk to the local senior in our community about what life was growing up in our area all about, because certainly things have changed, and our sponsor, FCCB's Tioga County offices are in Wellsboro, Mansfield, and Blossburg. First Citizens Community Bank, building better communities for over 150 years. Member FDIC. And you can hear these programs online. And Don, you were telling me you've listened to some of these online.
Oh, I listen to them a lot online. Because usually 10 o'clock on Saturday, I'm an insomniac, so in the middle of the night, I go onto YouTube. Well, I play a lot of KCFM.com also to get the live stream.
Yep, KC101FM.com. That's our website. And on there, you'll see Saturday with Seniors. There's a link that takes you there. Yeah. You're telling me you listen to Dr. Baird one.
I've listened to Dr. Baird's at least a dozen times, I think. I just love it. And I've repeated some of the others, too. I just think they're wonderful. And because I identify with how they grew up.
Mm-hmm. And as time goes on, we don't want to lose the memories. I mean, it really is. The world is changing so fast. In your opinion, is the world changing for the better or for the worse? I guess that's a loaded question with a lot of different answers. But
well, for me, it's not so loaded, I don't think, because I tell my grandchildren and my kids regularly, I am so happy that I am on this side of getting off this planet than where you are, because I can't imagine the way things are going. I just can't even think of, say, my granddaughter's 26 years old. If she would live to be 79, I can't imagine what the world would be like. I mean,
53 years from now.
Even you, you're younger than my kids.
The changes just blow my mind. I mean, I'm 53 years old, and, you know, I go back to when I was in high school, and we had like 3 channels you could get on TV. There was no cable TV. There was no internet. There was no cell phone. I had a rotary phone with no cordless phone, you know, and so forth and so on. VHS. I mean, if you want to see a TV show, it was the TV show. When the president spoke, he took over the entire TV, every network.
Everything, right.
You were lucky to find cartoons on UHF maybe when you were 7 years old. But so I've seen those kind of changes, and you're 30 years older than me, so you've got a whole nother generation
I got
of
more than 30 years on you.
Well, however many years,
I
my
thought
math's
you
also.
were in your 40s.
Well,
maybe.
thank you.
You have good genes. Yeah.
Well, a good shirt too, and a good hairstylist. So, so let's talk about your early days in Gaelton here. Do you remember your first day of school?
Oh, yes, I do. I loved school. I couldn't wait to get to school.
Was it uphill both ways, like we hear back in your generation for school?
When we went to the north side, it sure as heck was. It was steep.
But coming home was downhill. They didn't reverse it.
When we came from Clintontown, we went down
Yep.
Brewery Hill. But when we went home at night, we went up Brewery Hill. Gaelton was full of hills. And when Celia Wilson, her parents bought the house at the top of the hill, and we were at the bottom of the hill. And Celia and I used to go up behind Kohler's, up the hill behind Clintontown. There was a bald spot up there. For whatever reason, the trees hadn't started to regrow. And Celia and I, we played school up there. We had tea parties. Celia was good about knowing which of the plants were poison and which of the plants we could eat. And that was when we were real little, maybe even before first grade.
What were some of the things kids did then in Gaelton? Was there a pool then? Did they swim in the pond?
No, we didn't have.
What was a typical fun thing to do as a kid in the summertime in Gaelton?
Some of the kids, where the community building is in Gaelton, there's a dam next to it, and I think that dam might still be there. And that's where they swam. And when I was 3 years old, Arvid Kuhl and Wanda Laux threw me in there, and I went down, and I didn't come up. And I've been petrified of water ever since. So I did no swimming or going near water. Just not my
Still
thing.
calling them out on that 75 years later, huh?
Right now, my heart's palpitating.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That was awful. But that's what most of the kids did.
Yeah.
And then the boys did all kinds of fun things. Celia and I, we played hopscotch. We went up on the hill
Yeah.
and played school and
Yeah.
ate the plants.
Had your own little
and
private space
a
up there.
Tea party, yeah.
Did you ever meet anybody famous in your life?
Well, I've met a lot of famous people. I think the one that I met that had the most effect on me was John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
Wow.
In 1963 and 64, when I worked for the Army Corps of Engineers down in Alexandria, Virginia, and I was secretary to 8 engineers, 3 of whom were working on the spacesuit. They were cryogenic engineers, and the other 5 were on top secret Nike X anti-missile system. And once a month, we had to go to the White House and have a conference with President Kennedy.
And you got to go.
Oh, yeah. He was amazing. He was so down to earth and so kind and so nice. That's the biggest one.
He would have
Oh,
been
and the
about-
other one
yeah.
that I met Willie Nelson. Oh, my gosh, that was years later after my kids were great. But I stood in a blinding rainstorm out in Ohio at a Willie Nelson concert. And God bless Willie. He could have been underneath the roof, but he came out to be in the blinding rainstorm with all of us. And we were all soaked, but but he kept singing.
Well, that's great. So what point did you move out of Gailton to Wellsboro then?
1960, as soon as I graduated, I left Gailton. I said, I'll never come back to this place. I hate winter.
Gailton does have a share of winter, but it's a beautiful town.
Yeah, and it is. And Potter County is named God's country, because it is, But I hate winter.
Well,
but
Wellsboro isn't exactly Florida either, just to give you the heads up here.
I went to Minnesota. I went to Minneapolis.
Oh, there's a nice warm spot. The icebox of America.
Their cold is a different cold than our cold. We have moist cold. They have dry cold.
Desert cold.
And they'd be complaining and be saying, gee, you ought to be back home where I come from. This is warm. But anyway, then I went to Pittsburgh, which is what I consider my home, is Pittsburgh, because that's where I raised my kids. I still have my kids' father's family, a lot of friends. And now, of course, my silly grandkids are down in that area. So Pittsburgh, to me, will always be home.
Yeah, it sounds like you got many homes.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I lived in Alexandria, Virginia, in between there.
Yeah.
Minneapolis, Pittsburgh, got married. Alexandria, Virginia, back to Pittsburgh. Then Rockville, Bethesda, Maryland, Laurel, Maryland.
Why did you move so much? Is this military related, or?
Oh, no.
Like to move?
Well, to make money.
Yeah. You follow the jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, so like 30 more stops later, you ended up in Wellsboro. What year?
And then, let's see, I came to Wellsboro in 2004 because I was retiring. And my original thought, I was going to Myrtle Beach, where one of my sisters-in-law lived. But my daughter said, you got grandkids here. I don't know about other people, but with me, I would be going down the road and all of a sudden there'd be a fork. And a lot of the time I'd say, oh, I want to go this way. But the good Lord had the plan for me to go this way. So he let me go this way a little bit. And then he'd yank me back to where he wanted me. And I believe that he wanted me here.
Nothing wrong with a U-turn in life if you need to.
Yeah. And I believe he wanted me here for the purpose of taking care of the troops.
Yes. And before we wrap up, just a little plug mention. We've had you on a lot before, but goodies for our troops. You started that program up, and it's been an amazing program. How many thousands of troops have you sent things to? Do you have any idea? It's got to be thousands.
Our list is over 3,000.
Wow.
And
every one of them has had a moment in their life where they felt special, cared about, tied into home. Every one of those gave, a soldier a special moment. Yeah. So thank you for doing that. I'm sure it makes you feel great too.
But the thing is, it's like there's so many people that are a part of that, the people that donate, the people like you and all the other nice media things, newspapers and magazines and whatever, that advertise for us for free. The volunteers, It's a God thing all the way around. Like the Good Samaritans, the First Presbyterian, we'd had to disband. And just how that all happened, it's just a God thing,
Well, that is great.
And I wish everybody knew that we owe our troops and our veterans and their families so much. And even though, times are rough here sometimes now, we could be in so much worse position.
Absolutely.
And we also have the best military that will protect us, and hopefully there will still be in the United States.
And we have our brave soldiers out there, too, to defend us as well. And this Memorial Day weekend, this is airing on, by the way, as well. So we should certainly mention our soldiers and those that lost their lives.
And there's one fallen hero from Iraq, Afghanistan, buried in Wellsboro Cemetery, and that's Tyler Davis. And he is a graduate of Wellsboro High School. Wellsboro, by the way, on Memorial Day, 10:30, they're going to leave the green and proceed up to the cemetery. And then 11 o'clock will be the Memorial Day ceremony.
Okay, on Monday, Memorial Day, 10 o'clock.
10:30 from the green, 11 o'clock at the cemetery. Okay. And I hope a lot of people will take a few, that's not too much to ask, to honor and remember those that have done so much for us.
Sure.
And take an hour out of your barbecue or whatever.
Yeah, I know. It's a holiday that people are like, yeehaw, summer's here, let's party, let's celebrate. But you know what? You wouldn't be able to party and celebrate if it wasn't for our troops. I mean, really.
How true. How true.
I mean, that's stop and realize all the freedoms we have. So, Dawn, thank you so much. I mean, we probably could talk for a whole day here, but Got some interesting tidbits of Gaelton and your growing up and Potter County, what life was like in the early days and your teacup parties on the hill. And thank you so much for sharing all your information.
And thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it so much. It's a delight.
If you missed any of the program, you can hear it on our YouTube channel. Just go to kc101fm.com. You'll find a link there. It's been brought to you today and each Saturday with Seniors by FCCB's local offices in Wellsboro, Mansfield, and Blossburg. FCCB, First Citizens Community Bank, building better communities for over 150 years, member FDIC.